Just let me hear some of that rock and roll music. Any old way you choose it.
Hello, this is Katie with Vintage and Vinyl, and I'll be spinning some rockin' 50s records every week here on my channel, as well as sharing some cool Coca-Cola collectibles and other neat vintage finds. Stay tuned! Hey guys, this is Katie with Vintage and Vinyl, back with another great video for you today. In this video, we are continuing on our read of this 1953 saucy romance novel for young moderns by Louis Holbert. I hope you have enjoyed this book as much as I have. It's been a lot of fun reading through this with you all. And a big shout out and thank you to Misty over at Thrifter Junker Vintage Hunter. She had this great saucy book trend and I was inspired to read this for you all here on YouTube. So thank you, Misty. And of course, Nicole at Nesting Haven for having this book in her live sale. It's been fun, and Nicole, it definitely found a Katie. So please go subscribe to their channels because they have some fabulous content, and I can't wait to see what happens in chapter 8 of this book. Oh my goodness, guys, there's so much happening. Paul Serral and Katie might be something of an item, I kind of think. And Diana Caldwell's got that strange man that keeps following her around. I kind of think that's the secret project. I think Paul Serral and Esperon know something about that, and that's why Paul Serral keeps asking her about Diana. So we'll have to see what happens there. And then, of course, I hope maybe Katie's mom might get involved with Paul Serral. It seemed like they had a lot in common with that opera music and all that going on at the birthday party. So we'll have to find out a little bit more, but there's a lot happening and I can't wait to dive in. So just a little quick note before we do. This week there is no live sale calendar, but I am posting as many details about sales and events on my Instagram page as I can. I certainly don't see everybody's, and I'm sorry if I missed yours, but I do try to share that so that we all know what's going on within the vintage community, and there's lots of great stuff happening this week, so tune into my Instagram. It will be linked down below, vintage_and_vinyl, and I hope you all will make it a priority to be kind this week. Okay, so let's jump into chapter 8. Katie's Project, Chapter 8. What happens to my time? Katie wailed to her mother. There's only so much to do and never enough time to go around. Only last year, a 24-hour day had seemed ample and time had been expandable. Vacations used to be a matter of a few chores around the house, then hours of playing tennis on the cement courts in Nicollet Park, and lounging afterwards to read or talk. After dinner, perhaps a walk over to Lake Harriet to go canoeing and listen to the concerts while they drifted on the water. Other nights playing chess or Scrabble at home, or perhaps a neighborhood movie. Now leisure was ephemeral as a rainbow, always tomorrow or the next weekend, never here and now. There were classes in the morning, a quick lunch, work at the studio, or in the library or an assignment with Esperon. Then home for dinner and study, or some work in her basement darkroom. She barely managed to stay awake long enough to empty trays, put away negatives, and hang up prints to dry. But she faithfully followed Esperon's strict instructions and example. And weekends were just as busy. If she wasn't catching up on writing a paper that was due for a class, she was borrowing the Rolly to shoot more pictures for her idea on Masses in Motions, the ghost story she had named it, or printing them in her darkroom. A few times she had gone to a movie or a concert with Mike or Stan and Louise, and they had scolded her for looking so tired and skimping on sleep. Every morning she had to force herself to get up. Chores loomed enormous each day, and the smallest activity became labor. Her mother found her late one night, almost asleep, with her head down on her arms, crossed over the typewriter. "But I've got to finish this paper. It's due tomorrow," Katie said sleepily, and insisted over her mother's protest, and doggedly went back to work for another hour. It was the next day that Esperon came back from dinner with Paul and found Katie curled up on the couch with both hands tucked under the pillow, sleeping like a child. He threw a blanket over her, intending her to let her sleep on, and telephoned Mrs. Owens not to worry. He or Paul would take her home when she woke up. But she stirred at the sound of voices and sat up in confusion, looking guilty and apologetic. Esperon was cross with her, upbraiding her for not taking better care of herself. Paul, look at those circles under her eyes. Do you get enough sleep, Katie? I thought not. And what did you have for lunch today? A candy bar? You should know better than that. What's the matter with you, Katie? But I just lay down to rest for a minute before going home. I don't understand how I could fall asleep like that. You don't know? Esperon was outraged. You need sleep, and that's why. Your body has more sense than you have. You can't abuse your health like this any more of the skipping lunches and getting 4 hours of sleep a night. And you can forget about this job. I'm not going to be responsible for overworking and landing you in the hospital. Take it easy, Ralph. That is enough, Paul interrupted. She'll know better after this. Come on, Katie. I'll drive you home. Talk some sense into her, Paul, Esperon said, following them to the door. Working hard is fine, but you've got to balance it against some relaxation, too, Katie. When did you last see a movie or have a date? Reluctantly, from the depths of her crimson embarrassment, she said, a week or two ago, I guess. Esperon snorted. That probably means 3 weeks ago. See here, Katie? You take good rest tomorrow, even if you have to cut classes. And don't come to work. That's orders, understand? In silence, Katie walked down the dark corridor with Paul. I never saw him so mad before, she said finally. I didn't mean to be such a nuisance. Oh, it isn't that, Paul said gently. His wife died quite young, and I think she was a semi-invalid, and he blames himself for letting her overwork. She was a very talented violinist, I believe, and he doesn't talk about it. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. She was sorry both for Esperon and for having caused a small scene. He's right, you know, Paul added. If you don't eat properly or get enough sleep and relaxation, everything suffers. Your work, your energy, your disposition, your studies. Don't you go in for sports at all or get any exercise? I used to bowl and play tennis and swim a lot, but this year between classes and working, I just haven't had time. And lately I've had papers due and have been working on an idea for a picture story, so I've lost a good deal of sleep, but I feel much better since I took that little nap. A picture story idea? What's this about? It probably won't amount to much. I've been having fun with it. I haven't even told Esperon about it. She described the projects of the ghosts and what she was trying to do. By the headlights of the oncoming cars, she watched anxiously for his reaction and saw that he looked interested. He nodded. It sounds like something well worth trying. I don't recall seeing anything just like it, and that picture editor is always looking for new ideas. Ghosts. What a shame Halloween isn't coming up. It would be a natural for that. He turned the car down DuPont Avenue. By the way, do you ever go skating? Oh, not since I was about 12. I've never been very keen on winter sports. It's too cold for me. Bowling is more my speed in the winter. Why? I haven't been skating all year, and I love it. How would you like to stop off with me at the arena tonight and have a go at it? You say you're rested now, and your mother isn't expecting you home right away. Oh, but I'm not dressed for skating. Look at this tight skirt, and I don't think I could even stand up on any skates. Come on, you'll manage somehow. But you haven't had any dinner. We'll stop in here for a bite and then head for the arena. He had coffee, but she only wanted a sandwich, and half an hour later she laced up her rented skates and wavered bravely out onto the ice. After her third tumble, Paul relented. That's enough soloing. Now, let's have some fun. He was a good skater, and with his arm around her waist, she felt infinitely more secure. Soon they were skating to the music of Strauss' waltz around the rink. weaving in and out among other couples. "This is fun," she announced, beaming at him. "Why do you look so surprised? Of course it is. Look how wonderful some of those skaters are, and how beautifully the girls are dressed for skating with their short skirts." It made her self-conscious again about her inappropriate clothes. "You're doing fine, and you look fine. Just keep relaxed and follow my lead. That's it. Watch out," he warned as she narrowly missed colliding with another couple. She couldn't remain self-conscious about her awkwardness. There was too much gaiety and too many other beginners on the rink. "I couldn't imagine a better prescription, Dr. Searle," said Katie when Paul parked the car in front of her house and walked her to the door. "Easy to take?" he grinned at her. "You look 1,000% more relaxed. Like to try it again sometime?" "I'd love to," she said. "Would you like to come in for a little while?" she said rather timidly, feeling that it was remarkably considerate of him to squander an evening on her when he undoubtedly had better things to occupy him, and it wasn't likely that he'd want to waste any more time in chit-chat with her. She wished she had sounded more offhand. "Thanks, Katie, but I can't tonight. Next time we'll plan an evening, and I'd like to. Don't forget that you're supposed to play hooky tomorrow. Good night, and remember to thank your mother." She waved from the door and watched as he crunched down the new fallen snow on the sidewalk. She didn't intend to assume he really meant to have a date with her. Maybe if she were more mature, riper, as Esperon had said, more sophisticated, more of a Diana Caldwell type, for instance. Yet she had no wish to be like Diana, really. She could admire her poise, her way of accepting men's attention as a matter of course, her casualness, and at the same time Katie recognized that those qualities were alien to her. And underneath Diana's facade of poise, she sensed an unrest, an unhappiness that made Katie feel more content with her own lot. Still, Diana was so stunning with her blonde hair and chic clothes, really distinctive in face and figure. Upstairs in her room, Katie opened the closet door and looked critically at herself in the full-length mirror. There was nothing elegant about this girl. Freckles, blue eyes, dark, slightly curling hair, high cheekbones. It was a pleasant face with a nice high collar, but it was hard to single out anything remarkable about it. Katie leaned a little closer to study her reflection. Well, the eyes were rather fine in color and shape, but not large, and the lashes were thick and black, accentuating the blue of the eyes. The eyebrows were black and full, but inquiring rather than dramatic. The total effect was lacking sophistication. Figure, so-so, small waist, but she groaned looking at her hips. She was so short, and she always was reminded of that at parades and football games. She frowned at herself. She really could afford a new dress now, that eternal feminine solution for discontent. The bed was so soft and welcoming to her tired muscles, and sleep came in minutes. The next morning, her mother let her sleep in, and it was almost noon when Katie woke to hear the telephone ringing. It was Paul Searle calling. He was at the office and wanted to tell her he had mentioned her idea for a series of ghost pictures to the picture editor of the paper, and he had suggested that she send in some prints to life her look. He said the speaking of pictures feature in life is a particularly receptive to imaginative photographs by freelancers, Paul reported. Of course, they do receive thousands of photographs a day, but it won't do any harm to try. "I'll do that today," Katie said, aglow with encouragement. "Be sure to look over some of the back issues of the magazines, but I think you'll find that department a good place to try." "Should I send some to Look or another magazine too?" Katie asked. "Great Scott, no!" Paul exploded. "Not unless you want to ruin your reputation before you start. If Life rejects them, yes, but you never submit the same pictures at the same time to two magazines. Some magazines demand first publishing rights, and then you can resell the pictures. Others want exclusive rights, which means that unless you get their permission, you can't resell the same photographs." Her first step was to collect and study her prints for the series. Out went all the bad prints, those that were gray in color, lacked richness, or were too contrasty, and those that showed dust marks. Careless. I should have dusted those better before I put the negatives in the enlarger, she reproved herself. But one print was particularly fine, one except for 2 or 3 tiny specks, so that she put aside to retouch with a soft pencil, glad that she had used a semi-matte paper instead of glossy. She blessed Esperon for telling her that although glossy prints were best for newspapers, first-class magazines accepted the dull matte finish or semi-matte prints because of their presses were better equipped to reproduce them. Only half a dozen prints remained that satisfied her in subject, composition, and print quality. Wishing she had foresight to have a rubber stamp made up, she printed her name and address on the back of each print. She put them in an 8 by 10 inch envelope with cardboard inserts for protection after attaching captions to each with information about where and how the picture was taken. Since individuals did not register in any photographs, she had not troubled to get model releases. Anyhow, she remembered that since these were all in public places, there was less need for that precaution. She added a self-addressed envelope with postage and a brief cover letter. The large envelope she addressed first class to Speaking of Pictures Life magazine, Time Life Building, New York City, as she had previously done for some of Esperon's photographs. Well, that was that. At least she had taken a positive step toward trying her interest in photography, and if they were rejected, she would try them elsewhere. If they were accepted, well, she wouldn't permit herself to indulge in fantasies, knowing what the odds were against acceptance, since life was the first target for ambitious young photographers. But they are good photographers, and the idea is a good one, no matter what happens, she told herself. So that is the end of chapter 8 of Katie and her camera. Oh my, I hope Katie gets those pictures accepted into Life magazine. Wouldn't that be something? And her date with Paul Serra, I call that a date. I certainly think it was one. I'm excited to see what happens from there. And I hope Katie does get some more rest, because that is important. So we'll have to see what comes from this in chapter 9. But I hope you guys will stay tuned this week for upcoming sales and events. Go support everybody you can, and I will be back with you on Wednesday for another great video. So for now, stay in, stay safe, and Ben's YouTube.
That's why I go for that rock and roll music any old